Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and I hope you have a pleasant day. And today is Tuesday, and we've got something special cooking for you. I know this is something really funny, and we're talking about Crowdsec today. Do you know what Crowdsec is? Well, it's about security, and I have a special guest for that. So let's see who we have there joining. And here we have him, the man of the hour. Welcome, Klaus.
Yeah.
Klaus, you're live on stream right now with me.
Yeah, cool. Nice to see you.
And today we are having a look at Crowdsec. So Crowdsec is all about outnumbering the bad guys. So what can we expect from that?
Yeah, well, as I said, Crowdsec is about outnumbering. Crowdsec is a very important part of Crowdsec is the crowd, right? I mean, the thing that's great with Crowdsec is that we collect signals on attacks from a large number of agents around the world, and basically by using the collective of people, we make a strange network of defenders, basically. So that's basically the point. And also, Crowdsec is free to use and open source. So yeah, that's another advantage, I guess.
That's a good point. I mean, people might say that's just another fail to ban with a multiplayer option. And do we agree on that, or do we say there's more to that?
I would say there's more to that, because obviously Crowdsec, or if you don't know Crowdsec, then it's not obvious. But Crowdsec is it has its at least mental origins in fail to ban, because our founders used to be successful server hosters where they use fail to ban were on all the servers, because that's what you do, and it's based on those that knowledge and that experience, they came up with Crowdsec, basically.
Yeah, I mean, what bugs me the most about fail to ban is that I do not see the slower brute force attacks that maybe try a password every 5 minutes, and they just drown in log spam that we get from those attacks, and fail to ban isn't really able to pick those up. So that's a big thing I see here.
Yeah, that is a really good point, because Crowdsec is, I mean, we very much respect respect fail to ban and the founders behind that, but let's face it, fail to ban is like 18 years old. Things were different back then, and the attacks weren't as sophisticated, I guess, as they are now. Another difference is of course that Crowdsec is able to detect things that's more advanced, and that slow brute force is, in the end of the day, that's more advanced, a little more advanced than, just an ordinary brute force. And also another kind of brute force attack we see today is also distributed brute force attacks, where it's different hosts participating in the brute force attack. Basically, Crowdsec can also detect that, because it's able to see that's a bad guy, so we'll block that, and that's a bad guy, so block that, and also based on the intelligence that it gets from the crowd, maybe those hosts are already banned. So then you won't see them.
This is something I noticed a lot about the block lists that Crowdsec allows us to have access to. This is I use them on my firewall to just block the offending hosts right at the coast, and that makes it a lot easier on my whole network. And I have a graph actually showing how much less CPU I use, because I don't have to deal with those with that handful number of IP addresses hammering and pesting my systems. That's quite cool.
Yeah, that's a good point, because another thing that Crowdsec does is it gets rid of the background noise, right? All those brute force attacks that doesn't do anything but just pestering your log. And you're obviously just a little bit secure, so you won't get attacked by them, or it won't harm you, but it's just annoying, right?
Let me fetch an example. The battleship of the Russians, the Moskva, they were fighting with operator fatigue, which is they were staring at their radar screens and stuff like that, and nothing really happened except for background noise, and then they overlooked what was actually hitting them, and that's what took them out. That's at least my take out of it. And so Crowdsec is basically removing the operator fatigue, because you don't have to just stare at stuff. You take action automatically.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point. Yeah, I know. Yeah, and also, but I mean that comes from the automation. It doesn't really matter when the attack is coming. Yeah, the computer and Crowdsec is ready, right?
Yeah, and the log files aren't that crowded. But what do you think if we just take a dive into a security concept in general? We do have a lot of guys out there wanting to host their own servers. I mean, it's legit. Even businesses do. And I've got a couple of security concerns with those that I'd like to address, and where Crowdsec comes in really, really handy. What do you think?
That sounds great, but before we dive into detail, maybe I just want to say that we have a Discord where community is thriving. That you have the link somewhere, right?
Yes, of course I do. It is just in the chat right now, and people feel free to join. And if you want to hit me up, you can do this on my Discord or on the Crowdsec Discord. If you've got questions, we are happy to answer them all.
Yeah.
And thanks, Klaus, for the short introduction. And
thanks for having me.
I'd say, let's get going.
Okay, see you later.
See you later. All right, folks. Let's go to the desktop. Okay, here we are now. So, if you're running your own server, is that a good idea or a bad idea? Usually I don't play the good idea, bad idea games. I just roll with what I got and adapt. So, the problem is adaptation that needs knowledge. So, there are some arguments that people tell me that we need a clan game server, we need a clan TeamSpeak with a cool domain and stuff like that. There's nothing against that. But it takes a lot of knowledge, and if you don't know that, there are a lot of misconceptions out there, and I want to address those and how to deal with those. First of all, if you rent a root server, you get all you need. Well, what you get is a machine and not really something like knowledge, services, because if something goes wrong, it's your job to deal with it, and that's where we have the tools for. The server hoster gives you uptime. I mean, those figures might be off at some point, but the uptime that they give you is line uptime. So if you have a problem on your server might still be down, even if the line is up. So, your problem. Full control of the server, not gonna happen. They can still pull the plug, and that's it with the control. I mean, that's just a few misconceptions that are floating around there, and that people can do anything they want on their server. I think we can agree to disagree with that point either. Configuring the box with a couple of clicks, and that's where it gets difficult. Think about it. What if your management software goes down because of an attack, or because it just broke? Bad luck on those. So, traffic-wise, getting rid of the background noise is a point. And this part, the last one, is sadly an argument I hear most of the time. People don't really get the idea that something can go wrong, that the internet isn't really... I mean, what is cloud computing? What is a server? It's just another computer connected to the internet, so people can connect to it and vice versa. And connection also means there's an attack surface. Okay, I need a server for what I'm doing. Yes, okay. That's an argument. That is okay. I mean, self-hosting, we agree on that. I do it myself. And, you know, responsibility, that's the key point here. There are root server contracts that you basically accept the agreement. It's basically, if something goes wrong, it's you being responsible for that thing. and you are, well, responsible for its security, that's what we are talking about today. I mean, what happens? Why are people attacking servers or any computers in general? Data theft, okay, that's the thing. Identity theft, virus propagation, spam, and yeah, there is a lot of stuff. And this is where Crowdsec jumps in. We help to block those servers that are attacking others. I mean, possible solutions is really, first, if you don't have the knowledge, rent the services you want. I mean, email, you can get a Gmail with your own domain. You can go to a web hoster, game servers. Or you can get professionals on board like me or like Klaus, the guy we talked to. And virtual machines in a safe environment are all nice and dandy. But as soon as you enter the World Wide Web out there, you are in danger. And what I'm talking about is, with great power comes great responsibility, and this is where Voltaire kicks in. It's still true today. We are server administrators, and we need to get our boxes secure. Crowdsec is our weapon of choice, and I have prepared something for you because installation is straightforward. I do have a Debian virtual machine set up for you. It's blank and really recent Debian installation. I just set it up. So Debian is a system you might be familiar with. It also works like Ubuntu. It's running on apt. So I'm gonna log in just as root because I'm doing some administrative stuff here. And my point here is I wanna install Crowdsec. So let me just pull up their installation document because there's a link. There we go. This is a one-liner. It's a no-brainer. They are hosting their stuff on Package Cloud. Package Cloud is a package hoster where you can publish RPM packages for, let's say, Fedora, CentOS. Yeah, the SUSE also works with RPMs. Debian and Ubuntu and others, they do work with damn it, they work with Debian packages. Now, to install it, let me pull up the virtual machine. We just need to basically paste that command that I can't paste because I'm in a virtual machine and I don't want to open a PuTTY session to it because I don't have a private key set up there. Okay, we are on Package Cloud IO. Go to the install repositories. Crowdsec, and we have the script .sh, and we want to pipe that through a shell. They use sudo here because they assume you are logged in as a user, and we're doing this as root now. Okay, I might have a spelling mistake in here. Just a second. What's happening? Okay, there we go. It is 109. I'm gonna paste it. You know, spelling mistakes are a B here. 10, and it was the 109. Oh, I do have the public key set up here. All right. Copy and paste. Oh, come on. Give me a break here. No standard packages installed. No problem. There we go. I just mistyped. So here we are adding a repository to get Crowdsec on board. Now all we have to do is update to pull in the repositories, and then we just install Crowdsec. As you can see, it pulls in the dependencies and just installs it, and then there is just one command to get us set up. And Crowdsec detects what you're running on your host. As this is a plain machine, there will just be something like syslog and the most obvious SSH daemon. But if you are running stuff like a mail server, you can pull that in as well. The command we're using is the Crowdsec wizard, which I highlighted over here, which is user share crowdsec wizard.sh -c. Fun fact about this. The wizard is really pretty straightforward. It uses end cursors and menus. So you can really, if you read it, if you take your time, the documentation is pretty much obsolete, but we'll follow it. You know, the first thing you want to install is a parser, or let's say an agent. And this agent parses the logs and sends the signals back to the Crowdsec servers and gets the stuff for you. Why do we have that agent stuff here? Well, it's a simple approach. And you can have a distributed setup just like I do. I run agents on my mail server, on my web server, and I run a bouncer. That's the thing that is actually doing the blocking on my firewall. And as you see, I just invoked the wizard, and I can choose standard Linux stuff and the SSH daemon. Pretty straightforward. I can also add other scenarios if I know that I've got a home assistant somewhere in a Docker container, read stuff from whatever. So even Nextcloud support is in there, so it gets the Nextcloud log. I had to check that manually on my web server because it didn't look at the path for detecting where I had it installed. So we agreed to disagree on that part. So yeah, and after you hit continue, you get the option of a whitelist here. And a whitelist is that you don't run into problems. Those are default log paths that are detected, and you just say okay. And then you can register your agent with the CS CLI and enroll it to Crowdsec. I'm not going to do that right here. There is a video on my YouTube channel, which is right here. And there is the whole shebang on how to install it over there. Now let's get to the nitty-gritty part. Okay, the nitty-gritty part is I run a mail server. And my mail server is a Carrier Connect by GFI, which is, from the client side, is just something like what you would expect from an Exchange alternative. It is not that expensive, and yeah, it works out of the box. You know, people are getting older, like I am. I'm 42 by now, and so I just don't do all the stunts on my own. Fun fact, with the mail server, it produces log files like those are on the admin console, and they're also in the file system. Thank you, Laurie. I'm not old, I just aged well. Happens. I think I kept the inner child and the tinkerer alive. So what I get here are log files about configuration, debug some errors, and a security log. And as you can see, there are a lot of failed SMTP logins brute forcing from an address. And to be honest, that sucks. Because why would they brute force my server? Why? I mean, I have to keep the SMTP port open. And trust me, they are trying hard to get in here. So why should I let them do that? Just one reason is enough for me. There are none. and this is not a honeypot, this is a real system. I need to keep the ports open. I want to provide this, I want to receive mail, so I need to keep port 25 open. It's as simple as that. Now, Crowdsec obviously does not support Carrier Connect yet. So what I did was taking a look in how to write my parser. And first of all, my mail server over here is pretty straightforward with the default Carrier Connect install. I'm gonna enlarge the font for you so it's easier to read. Appearance, there we go. How's that for reading? Does that work for you? I hope so. Okay, first of all, what do we have here? I know Carrier Connect writes log files, and they are in opt-carrier mail server, and I think they are in the store. And here we got the logs. Logs and are just, you know, in that directory, and we do have our beloved security log here. Windows getting too big. Great, thank you. Okay, now let's have a look at the security log, and we have various messages in here like spam attack. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna open a notepad, and we will just harvest a couple of those log lines because we'll need them. This is a SMTP attack. Client sent data before greeting. Just gonna grab that. Then we have the close the connection before the greeting. So this is also something we want to watch out. And we can also use the failed SMTP login. So I collected just a few of them because we will use them and react to those. Okay? These are now our messages, and we need to find them. So if I think back with fail to ban, it was a pain in the butt to just write parsers because you had to deal with regular expressions. But wait, there's more. Regular expressions are just a, you know, annoyance if you're dealing with patterns like this. So I have a grok debugger here, and this is where I start working. I have a line here, and I want to write a pattern for that. Pattern means I am trying to extract data from that line. How do we do this? So first of all, grok has a nifty thing with Elasticsearch. There are patterns. So just search up grok patterns, log/patterns, that's where they were. And that's how they would look. They follow a good syntax, and there is pretty much on documentation out there. So yeah, I'll show you the basics. First of all, we start with a date time that is written in those brackets. So it's a new line, and that's our brackets. And now it's time to slap in our detect me variable, and I'll just use data, and it's gonna be my time. And grok extracts that. Now we want to act on that specific message. So I'm gonna copy that over. SMTP spam attack. And then we do have another variable. Most important, it is an IP or host in my case, because in the log files, I don't trust them that there will be just remote addresses. So IP or host. There we go. And sometimes they do have a port over there. IP or host, and I want to have that as my remote address. Sounds good? And now that's where the grok syntax comes in pretty beautiful. I can also add a port as an optional thing like this. There we go. Got the port. Got the host name. And the remote here. So that's pretty good. And let's finish off that line. There we go. And this is how grok extracts it. So what I usually do is I write my patterns like this. And that way I'm able to detect what we are looking at. So I have Crowdsec installed here on this particular machine. So I'm hopping over to etc, and there is Crowdsec. There we go. Don't mind the beeping. That is me hitting the tab button to have tab complete. Now the config file here is pretty straightforward. You have the acquis YAML, which is a file format that is kind of like, you know, structured data. And if I look into that file, I'm gonna use nano for you, so it's got some syntax highlighting. That is where I define what log files I'm looking at. And this is where I said, okay, this is my Kerio connect log, like here, like so. And it is a type of Kerio connect, which will be my parser. Same here for the syslog. That stuff is pre-filled pretty much by the wizard, as you see from the comments. And you can add everything like, you know, Nextcloud logs, Home Assistant logs, whatever logs you like, even web server logs. And that's where the beauty comes in. Now, as we have that defined here, we can move on to the parsers. And we do have 3 things in the parsers here, and this is the raw. This is basically how to read something. Then the parse, this is where we are gonna write our parser to. And then we do have the enrich. Enrichment is a thing like, you know, from an IP address you can get more information, like geolocation, if you use the geo IP. And that is information you can add onto your stuff. That's beautiful. And to write the parser, I'm just dropping the file right here. And a parser is also just a YAML file. So let me get a Notepad++ here. There we go. And enlarge it a bit. How do we write a parser? Parsers do follow a strict definition. So just a second, there is my stuff. So you start out by naming the parser. Naming the parser is pretty straightforward. You wanna say, okay, my GitHub repository or username. Mine is Toire, as you might have guessed. And I'm gonna call this the Kerio Connect security logs. Stupid name, I know, but I don't have something better. Now we can describe it with the description, and that is where I just name it like, you know, a parser for Kerio Connect sec logs. Boom. And then we have a filter. And filtering means what are we watching? If you remember with the acquis file before, we said we are parsing carrier connect blocks. So this is where we have the event parsed and the program matches the carrier connect. There we go. So as you see in my Crowdsec acquis, this is the type over here, and we mention it here. So this ties together pretty well. And what do we do if we hit something, if we have a match? And this is on success. If our parser hits something, we just say, okay, move on. We are doing the next stage. Okay, and now you could say debug is true if you want to have more output on this. I usually keep that with a comment, and that is pretty much the first thing. For the language, I'm gonna do this with YAML, so it's a bit colored for you, more colorful, easier to read. Now, when we start to write a node, this is nodes, you start by defining a grok pattern. That is it. And we name that as well. The name in my case, I'd say carrier auth fail. Pretty straightforward. And when do we kick in? So we have the apply on. Apply on is every time we get a log message. So every new log line that comes in gets looked at. If we hit it, we extract the information and we pass that on. So we need to have a few statistics. Statics, sorry. Statics are the things we are looking for. The first thing we do here is defining the meta, it's a log type. And we call it the carrier connect failed login, because we need to define what alert we are, what signal do we send. So I'd just do it like this: product, action, and so on. And then we do have, for the meta, that's good. Now we need a target. We define a target as such. So it's an event. And we are reacting on its time. And now the expression is basically we parse the event, the string time. And with those meta and target expressions, you can really get a lot of stuff done. Okay? So let me just finish this up for you. And we have the carrier service, and we are going for a remote address. There you go. A little bit sloppy with the spacing. And this is how you define the pattern. But we're not done yet with the pattern itself. So let's add it with the pattern syntax over here. The pattern syntax is just definitions, and I have the carrier auth fail. Would you kindly? Yes, thank you. And this is where I put my grok patterns. My auth fail, that was something we engineered beforehand using the grok debugging tool. And it is basically just following the syntax like we did before. With we've got the time when it happened, we got the service that got attacked, the remote address, port, and stuff like that. If you're writing a parser for yourself, you know, that's how it works. You don't have to really keep anything special. You need to look at the log files, what you want to act on. So that's pretty easy, and I have prepared a couple of more patterns. There we go. And that gives me a lot of things like, you know, SMTP closed greeting, data before greeting, and we do have general spam attacks. So that's what I want to react on. And then I really just hack in those. I copy the paragraph. It's the same thing. I mean, look at it. You've got the nodes. You've got it all there laid out. You reference your pattern. So it's just a copy-paste job. Gutenberg would be proud. And that's all about the nodes magic. And now we want to keep some statistics. Statistics are always fun because that's what gets you on the dashboard. And there we do have a service. We just have to define it with a meta. And it is, for me, the Carrier Connect as a service. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. And we've got the source IP, which is the remote address. There we go. And if you wonder what this is, the remote address here, it's exactly what we have up here in our patterns. This is the way we parse for, and that's we call it. And that's why we identify them this way. That's how we do it. Okay? So once you have that pattern in place, it is able to extract stuff. So you could go out with a log sample, and that is what you usually do. So let me pull out this bad boy. Oh yeah. Do I have a test log? Yes, I do. And there are... Okay, that's a big one. Okay, that's even bigger. Okay. I'm just gonna cut the test log a bit short, just by deleting some lines, because we don't want to overload the system. The parser can be pretty cruel on a test run, because it has to test everything. You know what? I'm gonna just... put in the logs that we collected. There we go. So to verify our parser, we can run it against the Crowdsec using a CS Crowdsec CLI command. That way you can say, okay, dear parser, please explain. And the file we are looking for is our test log. And the type is, in my case, Carrier Connect. Boom. And that parses that little portion of the logs and gives me an explanation and tells me when or if a parser hits. It was as simple as that, yes. Nothing big here. Nothing big yet. Crowdsec does have a format for scenarios that we will look onto, and for the parsers, the documentation is pretty good. Think about it like this. I did it all by myself just by reading the documentation. And by the way, it says if there is a parser failure or what's happening. If something hits. And in our case, we've got some failures here, but the parser checks out pretty great. I maybe have some typos in here, but that's still work in progress because I started to play around with those parsers to get them started even better. Next thing here, what we're about to do is parsers are just looking at log files, and I closed the mail server again. Dang. Okay. There we go. In Crowdsec, we also have scenarios. Scenarios are something where we tie signals that we get from the parser. A scenario is something that tells you, come on, something went wrong, something was awkward, and we define those. We define those like the carrier connect, and I called that one a carrier connect scanner. A carrier connect scanner is, you know, where we react on those carrier connect SMTP close before greeting. Not greening. Jesus. Okay. We have, there is something that you call a leaky bucket. This means everyone is losing information at some point. Losing information, yeah, it just is a matter on how much you lose over time. And this is what we are looking for. So first of all, we start again with a name, a description, and this is the log type we defined in the patterns earlier. And now the fun part. The type here can be leaky. Leaky means you have something like a trigger and a counter. Think about it like this. If you get one alert of a failed password in 10 minutes, it doesn't matter. If it's brute force, it might be more, and somebody's trying, let's say, 20 times in 10 minutes, and that's when we want to react. And that's where the type leaky is interesting. And that's good. Then you have something like a leak speed. The leak speed is something that allows you to define how often an event will be leaking from that bucket. Let's say every 2 hours in my case, I allow 2 failed scans, like, you know, closed before greeting. And then I define what I want to group by. This is like the source IP. I want, if there is one IP address hammering and scanning, this is doing it over and over again. It's much about observing the log files. Think about it like this. What is happening? What do the log files do? You know, what do the scammers do? What do the spammers do? Observe. And then you see this one hits, this IP address hits me 1,000 times, whatever. That's how I define it. And then I want to black hole it for 8 hours. And then I define the labels with the service, like it's a carrier connect. It's a scanner. Remediation, true, yes. That is pretty straightforward. Group by is really an expression for the, you could say you go on a username. You can go to using a port. And there is that source IP again that we are using, that we gathered from our statistics in the pattern. Pretty straightforward, right? And what do you do with that stuff? I mean, you restart the Crowdsec service afterwards, you have tested it, And how do you get that stuff included? To me, it's like I forked the Crowdsec Hub repository on GitHub. As you see, it's forked from the Crowdsec Hub. You can just fork repositories by clicking on fork and getting them into. And this is where I have my parsers. And this is the S01 parse. And I have my toy array over here. And this is where I put my Carrier Connect security parser that you can have a look at and improve on if you want to. Then you have the scenarios right in here as well. Toy array as my username here, and these are my 2 scenarios. We've got the spam harvest attack that works just like with the pattern matching, and the connect brute force. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. And now if I'm sitting in my repository, I can do a pull request. I request Crowdsec to integrate my code into their repository. And you've got the hub.crowdsec.net website, and this is where the collections are. This is where you get like an Apache log parser, and this is here for Ophelia, asterisk, Caddy, cPanel, even MB, endless SSH, and everything here. And this is where you should put your stuff. This is, we are reading the log files, and you know, it's a shame if that stuff doesn't end up there. You are putting much effort into that stuff. With a git tier, an example, if you run that, it's not asterisk, it's asterisk, which is a voice over IP communication thing, and there are a lot of bad guys trying to abuse your SIP connection. As you might notice, Home Assistant is here. Also, just to highlight a few of those, Nginx, email proxy, Nextcloud, even database servers are here. MariaDB, Linux in general, so that's pretty good. That's a collection that gives you parsers, even something for Proxmox, postfix. So there is really, even for the open sense, pfSense could also parse in here. So this is really something you might want to look into. And it's great to know even Windows parsers are here, like a Windows firewall. If you run a Windows server, you can also install that stuff. Vault Warden, Traffic, and a Synology DSM. So there is nothing really that shouldn't be here. If you run a service, if you expose it, what's the difference between somebody attacking a web server and the web application? Because that's why WordPress is here. WordPress is an application, and you can guess passwords on a WordPress login form without attacking the web server itself. So it's a good thing to have the parser for that scenario. And this is why I'm reaching out to you to invite you to write your own parser. And as you see, there are pull requests. See? And the big thing here is I have mine here as well for Carrier Connect. There is it. As you see, it's just waiting to be integrated. But how does that work? Let's look at the App Crowdsec Net dashboard. It's a really cool feature that you get with your Crowdsec installation registration. And these are my hosts that I'm looking at. And my web server is my local good guy running a couple of agents. And the alerts I'm getting here, you get nice graphs, nice statistics. And I want to look at the last 7 days. And if I scroll down here, I can see what they trigger. And there I got my Care Connect brute force and the close before greed. And let's have a look at only that. As you see, my parser is actually working. And as you see, there is a Bulgarian and an address from the Netherlands and another one from the Netherlands just trying to do stuff. And we are looking at those. And it's like, hey, why aren't they blocked? And frankly, I'm using my my firewall here, which is a pfSense, and I do run a rule here. And my rule here is a Crowdsec blacklist rule, which says anything on the outer facing interface that is blacklisted gets blacklist. The packages just get dropped. I ignore them. I don't tell them a reject package, you're not welcome here. I just tell them I am not here. So how does that work? I just have an alias here, which is a URL. It's a list I tie in here. And this is where I have my parser dumping the addresses. And to give you an idea what's in there, I'm using the Crowdsec blacklist alias here, and it has around 15,000 addresses hammering my server. Blocked. They don't reach me anymore. I don't exist for them. The point is, think about it. Who is actually beating up your server? Is that a customer? Is that somebody who is trying to buy from you? Let's take it to the real world, shall we? Imagine you run a shop or a service. Could be a lemonade stand, whatever. Just use your imagination. And now there's a bully coming in, throwing a brick at your shop window, breaking it. Is that guy gonna be a customer of yours? I doubt it. Many companies do, in fact, employ things like geo-blocking, so no customers from that area. It's like, no, I don't serve customers from the other street there. But does that really help? Let's have a look at what's attacking me. I'm gonna open up here, and there are a lot of hosts attacking me. Just for, let's say, for the sake of an argument, let's take the last 24 hours. Yeah, I got pretty beaten. And there are about 33 top addresses out of 464 attacks that made it through. Where did they come from? Most of them are Host Europe customers in France. Some are coming from Hetzner Online in Germany. So France, US, China, Finland, Russia, Japan, Germany. And do you really believe that somebody is gonna... Okay, I'm just gonna do the bad user agent. That is mostly stuff like parsers trying to, you know, search stuff up on your website, and bad user agents not really worth for the stats for the sake of making it simple. I've got a lot of alerts from China then. Actually hacking attempts, USA, Russia. And a lot of them were coming from Germany as well. But I'm blocking them. But how do they end up coming from Germany? Are those the bad German guys trying to hack me? Or are there some insecure servers being hacked and being abused? Honestly, I doubt it that there are so many people in Germany being that bad. I suggest there are mostly, as they're coming from Hetzner and other networks as well, that there is really stuff going on, and you can drill it down on the attacks. And you might ask me, hey Ray, how effective is that thing? Well, how much background noise do I get rid of? I did graph that with a gray log, which is system logging, and I did a small dashboard over there. And we can look at the dashboard, what's going on my systems. Okay, let's go. So what I get is about, yeah, let's say 20 to 30 blocks on average during the last hour. Every 2 minutes, that's one bar. And they are coming from all over the world. As you see, there is a lot of stuff coming from Germany being blocked, a couple of stuff from Switzerland, and this is about 900 blocks. Attacks that don't show up in my log files anymore. They are just being blocked. They are gone from my log files. So let's just extend the range and see how that thing is doing over the last 30 days. We've got 30 bars here, so every block here, this is where I introduced Crowdsec. And it's blocking about, 18,000, 15,000. It's blocking quite a lot. And you see attacks coming in all over the world, mostly trying to hammer my SSH port. That's the statistics I do. I told you it helps me on my infrastructure. I run a Proxmox server, so I graph my host. I use an RDD tool for doing so, and I was interested in how effective is my blocking. How effective is it? Make an educated guess, please. Got an idea? Got a clue? No? Well, think about it like this. 95% no. It's not that much in saving. To be honest, if you are dealing with that stuff, you've got something like a basic load on a virtualization server. That is about, 10 to 20%. And I wish it would be more, but it was amazing to see that it went down for, well, let's have a look. Let's have a look at the whole scenario. This is my virtual machine, and I've got the node here. And if I go to the monthly average, it was higher. It was about around 30% on the average here, and it dropped down to below 20% just because it didn't have to fork the authorization daemons and it had less work to do. Think about it like this.
Raul.
There's a caress for Daisy. Think about it like this. If you are working with emails, every day you spend like 5 minutes deleting spam emails. That is 5 minutes by, let's say, 5 workdays. That's 25 minutes, so roughly half an hour or 2 hours per month. Let's say 2 hours per month. So that is 1 day wasted on spam. That looks Doctor Strange. Yeah, that's rocket science. No, it's not that bad. But think about it. Think about it. If something is really wasting your time, why use it? And Crowdsec really helped me. I'm just looking for the graph where I saved it, and it's really taking off the load of the whole system, and that's awesome. I mean, think about it. I remember I had it in the Crowdsec Discord. Just gotta scroll through it. So, got it. Come on, there's quite some banter going on here. But I have to admit, Crowdsec really opened my eyes because I didn't really care for slow brute force attacks until then. It was something where I just said, okay, that doesn't concern me that much. Until I really found out about the number of alerts. I was always worried about somebody trying to exploit my WordPress instance because I run a blog. And it just drove me kind of mad. And it was like, you know, there is the graph. As you see, this was my server running before CPU load. And this was where I kicked in with Crowdsec. Disregard the spikes, please. And you could really see the drop down here. And by now it's taking up load again because I'm doing more on my servers because I have more resources available, and it's a devil's circle, really. So I wanted to give you an overview of what you can do, how you can write your own parsers, and trust me, I'm about to write a parser for some game servers of mine to get rid of some bots over there as well. So it could be something that I'm parsing the chat log for, let's say, somebody posting some scam links that are known, or some comments like, think about it, somebody's posting wanna be famous and a link and stuff like that. You could take that, write a grok pattern, and instantaneously ban those. You could ban those even before they reach your servers. In fact, that is something Twitch should really consider, but we are lucky today we didn't have many spam bots. So yeah, this was a small introduction into that stuff, and if you want to know more, you might want to hit me up on Discord. And first of all, there is a link to my Discord. There is a link to the Crowdsec Discord. And this video will be, you know, reworked for YouTube, and you will find it on my channel there. And if you want to know more about my socials, feel free to hit this link as well. And are there any questions? Suggestions? Well, I'm glad I could show off a bit of Crowdsec because it's a neat project that I'm supporting. And I have to admit, Klaus did bribe me by sending me some stickers, and I'm totally a sucker for merch in the security business. You know, Linux t-shirts and stuff like that. It just freaks some people out, especially if a woman is wearing them. You know, some geeks can't handle women that don't have JPEG, PNG, or other graphical prefixes as their last name. But that's it for today. I'm signing off, and hopefully see you on the Discord. Bye.